Tonight, you will pass a campfire without even slowing down. Maybe at a barbecue, maybe a candle on a table. You won't flinch, you won't stare. Your brain barely registers it as anything at all. But the first time your ancestors saw fire, it was the most terrifying, most magnetic thing they had ever witnessed. Because for millions of years before that moment, fire belonged only to the sky. It came from lightning. It came from volcanoes. It was something that happened to the world, not something the world's creatures controlled. Every animal on the savannah had one instinct when flames appeared: run. Fire meant death moving faster than any predator could chase. So why did your ancestors stop running? That question sits at the center of one of the strangest turns in human history. Somewhere between 1 and 2 million years ago, a hominin species, likely Homo erectus, did something no other animal on Earth had ever done. It did not flee the flame. It walked toward it. Try to imagine the scale of that decision. Not a single brave act, but a complete rewrite of instinct. Every nerve in that creature's body was screaming the same message every other animal on the plain was hearing: get away! And yet, generation after generation, something kept pulling a few individuals back toward the orange light instead of away from it. Maybe it was curiosity, maybe it was desperation. After a wildfire left behind something unexpected, a roasted carcass, already easier to eat than anything they'd torn apart raw. Whatever the trigger, it was the beginning of a relationship with fire no other species has ever managed to repeat. Anthropologist Richard Wrangham has spent decades studying this exact moment. His cooking hypothesis argues that controlling fire didn't just change what early humans ate, it changed what they were. Before fire, your ancestors spent most of their waking hours chewing. Raw meat is tough. Raw roots are bitter and nearly impossible to digest. A chimpanzee today can spend 6 hours a day just chewing food, extracting barely enough calories to survive. Then fire entered the picture, and the math of survival flipped. Cooked food is softer, easier to digest, and releases far more usable energy than the same food eaten raw. Wrangham's research suggests this single shift, fire breaking down food before the body had to, freed up enormous amounts of energy. Energy that used to go toward digesting could go somewhere else instead. It went to the brain. A chimpanzee in the wild spends nearly half its waking life with its jaw working, grinding tough seeds, getting almost nothing back for the effort. Now imagine a creature that didn't have to do that anymore. Imagine the hours that used to disappear into chewing suddenly opening up, empty, available. Hours for walking further, hours for exploring, hours for simply sitting still and noticing things. Time, it turns out, might be just as valuable an evolutionary resource as calories. The human brain is staggeringly expensive to run. It makes up about 2% of your body weight, yet burns roughly 20% of your daily calories just sitting there, thinking. No primate could have afforded that cost on a raw diet alone. But a species that handed digestion over to flame suddenly had calories to spare. And evolution, given spare calories, tends to spend them on whatever gives the next generation an edge. In this case, that edge was intelligence. But fire didn't just feed the brain, it also rewired the clock. Before fire, the day ended when the sun went down. Darkness meant danger, so darkness meant stillness. Anthropologist Polly Wiesner studied the Juhuanzi people of the Kalahari and found something revealing about what happens once a group gathers around flame after dark. During the day, their conversations were almost entirely practical. Who found food? Who needs tools? Where the herd moved. But at night, the subject changed completely. At night, they told stories. Wiesner found that after dark, conversation shifted toward myth, memory, gossip, and imagination, the raw ingredients of shared culture. Firelight extended the day past sunset for the first time in evolutionary history, giving early humans something no other animal had ever had. Leisure hours, safe enough to fill with something other than survival. Picture it. The world beyond the flame's reach is black and silent and full of unseen predators. But inside that circle of light, a group of hominins isn't hunting, isn't running, isn't chewing. They're sitting, watching the flame flicker. And someone, for reasons no one will ever fully know, starts talking about something that already happened, A hunt, a danger, a stranger still happens this exact way. A wedding toast late in the evening, a late-night talk with a close friend, a scary story told by flashlight. None require an actual flame, but they all borrow the shape firelight first created, a small circle of safety carved out of a larger darkness. Fire also did something stranger to the body. Before it, nighttime was the most dangerous stretch of every day. Predators had every advantage. Humans have poor night vision, dull claws, and slow reflexes. For nearly all of hominin evolution, darkness was endured, not lived in. Fire flipped that vulnerability. The same darkness that once meant frozen stillness now meant a boundary predators wouldn't cross. For the first time, a group could lie down, close its eyes, and trust the perimeter. Big cats avoid fire almost universally, and a group that could keep flame burning could finally sleep without a rotating watch. Some researchers argue controlled fire let early humans sleep more deeply and for longer stretches than almost any other primate. More time in deep, restorative sleep that consolidates memory and repairs the body. Better sleep, a bigger brain, a reason to talk after dark. They fed each other, like fuel feeds a fire. Now here's the part that should unsettle you a little. You still carry every piece of this. When you find a fireplace or candle flame strangely calming, that is not nostalgia. Researchers have found measurable drops in blood pressure in people simply watching a fire burn. Your nervous system still reads firelight as a signal that says, "You are safe now. You can finally rest." When you gather friends around a table at night and the conversation drifts from logistics into stories and gossip, that is the exact shift documented in the Kalahari. Different room, different century, same circuitry. And when you crave something warm and cooked instead of raw and cold, that is not weakness. That is a body still running on the operating system installed 1,000,000 years ago, the moment flame did the digesting for you. A bowl of hot soup on a cold night triggers something closer to relief, the same relief a hominin body felt when it didn't have to grind a meal down with bare molars. So what actually happened the first time your ancestors saw fire? The honest answer is messier than any dramatic scene. It was likely a slow, repeated negotiation with terror, approaching, retreating, across countless generations, until one group figured out how to keep a flame burning. Evidence points to controlled use becoming consistent roughly 400,000 years ago. But the consequence is direct. A species that stopped running from fire ended up with surplus calories. Surplus calories built a bigger brain. A bigger brain, fed and safe and awake after dark, started telling stories, and stories became culture. Culture became everything that came after: language, art, religion, science. The very fact you're reading sentences shaped by ideas discovered while sitting in the dark, lit only by flame. You are not separate from that moment. You're the result of it. So tonight, when you pass a candle without slowing down, you might want to slow down anyway. Light it. Watch it for 30 seconds. Notice your shoulders drop. Notice your breathing slow. That is not your imagination. That is 1,000,000 years of memory, quietly running in the background, recognizing an old friend,